I'd like to welcome all of our friends and neighbors and colleagues in joining us in this regularly scheduled October 21st City Council meeting. As you come in tonight, which would be to my right, to everyone else's left, there's a set of double doors. You walk through those double doors. There's a desk. On that desk is a sign-in sheet. If you're a guest with us tonight, please sign in. City Clerk, can I have a roll call?
Yes, Councilperson Morrissey, Palladino, Pratt, Sharp, Soha, Stuchel, Veer, Wolfram, Mayor Stockford.
Here.
9 present, Mayor.
Thank you, Katie. We'll move into approval of agenda. City Manager, any members of council have any changes to make to the agenda tonight? Councilman Soha.
Thank you, Mayor. If council would agree with me, I'd like to add under communications and petitions a letter F just to discuss the Lifeways building, because I've had a lot of inquiry about that this last 5 days.
I'm fine with that. Do we have any information to be shared on that, or are we just going to be spitballing it?
Spitballing it, Mayor, if you're okay with that.
I mean, if that's what you guys want to do, it's all right with me.
I had called to find out if it was even going before us, but it's not going before us. So, okay.
Okay. So is that a motion?
I move to add letter F under communications petitions to discuss the Lifeways.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Morrissey. All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. Any more changes to make to the agenda? City Manager?
Yes, Mayor, I would like to add, before public comment, a statement by the city manager.
Before public comment?
Before public comment.
Okay. Do I have a motion on that? Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Sharp. All in favor? Any opposed? Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilperson Palladino, Pratt, Sharp, Soha, Stuchel, Veer, Wolfram, Mayor Stockford.
Sure.
Councilperson Morrissey. That's 8-1 approved.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, we've got 2 more items onto the already busy agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilman Morrissey. All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. We've got an agenda. We will move into item number 4 now, which will be a statement from the city manager. Dave.
Thank you, Mayor. I have requested to make a statement with the purpose of correcting misleading and false information put forth anonymously on social media, which many might have drawn their opinions from regarding my contract and the recommended amendment on tonight's agenda. First, this is not a new contract. Currently, I am 3 years into a 7-year contract. The term length of 7 years was previously researched by the city attorneys and approved by city council. The 5-year stipulation only applies to a new hire when there is a vacancy in the city manager position. This can be confirmed by the city attorney. The recommendation is to increase my contract term to 7 3/4 years, not 8, which has been stated and repeated by many. Facts matter, and to be clear, it's not 8. If the additional 3/4 year is a problem for city council, adjusting it back down to the original 7 would be acceptable to me. The statement that I'm overpaid as a city manager, this statement fails to mention that I'm doing 2 jobs for the city. I'm the city manager and the BPU director. The combination is saving the city's general fund over $140,000 a year. Additionally, if one figured out what the general fund is paying of my current wages, it's around $79,000 per year, which is about 50% of what a similar sized community is paying a new city manager. Additionally, the average BPU director in Michigan is paid $196,119 per year, which is about what I make between the total of both jobs. The statement that city staffing has bloated under my watch from 68 to 78 full-time employees is misleading. Actually, the number is 69. However, if one did a little research, they would see historically the city has fluctuated between 65 and 88 full-time employees. And these are not administrators or all administrators. Actually, a very small portion are. They are laborers, they're charter required positions like the clerk, they're the firemen, they're the policemen, and they're the DPS workers that are pushing the shovels, repairing things in the community. The statement lacks any context for what's going on, which I'd be happy to explain with anyone at any time. The statement that I maximize property taxes, this statement is not true. The city council and residents do this. The city manager cannot do this unilaterally. Staff makes recommendations and city council approves. In fact, the last two tax increases for public safety and roads and leaves were both approved by a vote of the Hillsdale's residents, not me. The statement that I've given millions in tax breaks to corporations, this statement is not true. A variety of tax abatement and incentive programs have been created by the state of Michigan through the legislature, and the cities adopt them. Hillsdale City Council has adopted a number of these programs, and city council decides who receives the incentives. City staff only helps prepare the application according to city policies and recommends to the city council, but the city council makes the final approval. The statement that I initiated and am enforcing SADs, this statement is partially true. The untrue part is that I initiated SIDs. Actually, the SADs were recommended by the Fair Committee, made up of many from the community and elected officials together. The current majority of council believes that this is the best method to help with street repair funding. The true part of the statement is that I do enforce SADs as a directive or direction of the council. When the council approves an SAD, it's my responsibility to enforce that policy or directive. The statement that I increase fees universally, this statement is not true. In most cases, proposed fee changes go to the city council committee for recommendation to the full council for adoption. The city manager does not unilaterally increase fees. City staff only presents data and makes recommendations. And finally, my last two corrections. It's been stated that if this contract amendment is approved, I will have absolute power and can ignore the mayor, city council, and residents. This statement is absolutely not true. I've been in this 7-year contract for 3 years now, and I believe everyone on city council would agree that's not how I operate. But more importantly, it would violate the terms of my contract per section 1 of my employment agreement, duties subsection A through D. The contract clearly protects the city and its residents on this concern. Which brings me to my last correction, which is completely false. That I get paid a severance if I'm terminated with or without cause. My contract is clear. I only receive severance if I'm terminated without cause in section 7 and 8 of my contract. This to me is the most egregious falsehood put forward because I would be upset myself if I saw this in a contract for such a term. My contract is in the packet, and those who posted these false statements could have easily researched and wrote the truth, but they didn't. In closing, I hope the council does not let an anonymous group of writers derail this proceeding and deceive the residents into believing misleading and false information that is in direct opposition to the BPU boards and the ONG's unanimous votes in favor of this amendment. For this anonymous group to make up facts, to get others riled up to oppose something is unethical and it lacks the common decency that they claim to be in pursuit of. this city council should not reward these actions or behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, I don't see any reason for council to make any comment on that, as we will have plenty of time to talk later during the contract. We'll move into public comment on agenda items only. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your trips to one to the podium. Please limit your time limit to 3 minutes. And folks, we're pretty busy here tonight. We've got this timer here. I'm gonna be very, very strict about the time limit. So if I cut you off, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to speak. And also that we can move through this meeting with decorum and practical pace. So, podium's now open.
Ray Briner, 73 East Sharp Street, Ward 4. Well said, Dave. Thank you for all you do for the city of Hillsdale, the BPU, saving us money to be able to divert those funds somewhere else. You've come here and been city manager for a long time now, and had the best interest of the city at your heart, so I appreciate that. With that being said, that's all the comments that I have. I think you covered everything, so should be a short meeting for you, and I'm gonna go home now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Podium is still open.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Some of you might recall, about 10 years ago, I sat in a chair. My name is Doug Terry. I serve as the interim city manager for half of 2014, half of 2015, a little bit more than that. What I wanted to do is just explain to you a little bit of history of the city manager and its evolution here in Hillsdale. And right now, there's a temperament going on in our nation, maybe because of election, maybe because of biased TV commercials. Nonetheless, sometimes we need to lower the temperature a little bit and take a more methodical look at our government. One thing I wanted to just tell you about being a city manager. I retired from the city of Litchfield 3 years ago, and about 2 years ago, my phone started blowing up. I act now as an interim city manager for many cities, and I just want to tell you what the landscape of employment is. During my retirement, I was in Jackson sitting at Panda Express. You all know where that's at on West Ave. And they were looking for people, and they had a wage scale, and it said manager starting all the way down, $75,000. I retired from Litchfield at $65,000, and I thought, wow, I spent all this time in city management. It was a very rewarding career I've had for 40 years, over 40 years now. I just want to tell you that it's the devil in the details. City managers came into existence almost 100 years ago, and the reason why is because as technology grew and we started growing our infrastructure, our water mains, we had to protect our citizens from cholera and yellow fever. Somebody had to be there to make sure that we had chlorine to disinfect the water system. To take it a step further, it takes a certain amount of expertise, especially in the world of electricity, to produce, transmit, and distribute electricity takes a tremendous amount of expertise. Remember, it's the safety of our citizens and their welfare that we're looking after. I want to tell you, I was part of the committee that hired Dave, and I want to tell you that the landscape that we're in today's world, we are blessed to have Dave here as our city manager. Before council makes any moves toward eliminating Dave or the position of city manager, please review what other cities do. I really think.
Thank you, Mr. Terry.
Okay.
Podium's still open.
All right, whenever you're ready there, Adam.
You're good to go, George.
Ready? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is George Allen, and I live in Ward 4 with my wife and 3 children. There are several matters on the agenda today I would like to address. First, I note with dismay that the ONG committee proposes that we spend $6,000 of the public money, plus travel expenses, to pay some guy from Florida to fly up and subject everyone to a 2-day leadership workshop. Coming at a time when we are simultaneously considering charging residents extra property taxes just to fix their roads, this waste of your budget seems doubly irresponsible. Second, I regret that I will likely not be present at the full public hearing regarding the Three Meadows development project, but for now I will say just this. I can think of nothing more out of character to Hillsdale and unwelcome to its longtime residents than the proposal of a massive condominium development managed by an HOA. The things they've already put up out there are being rented at $1,800 a month. In what world is this a solution to a shortage of affordable housing? And furthermore, supported by our tax dollars, in the form of tax breaks. The city government should not be attempting to artificially stimulate the local housing market by these methods, this picking of winners and losers through tax break incentives. Third and most seriously, I do want to thank Mr. Mackey for providing all that extra information and context to the complaints about this extension of his contract. I'm especially glad to hear about this business about severance with or without cause, which was one of the most alarming things I was under a misunderstanding about. However, I still must urge you to deny the ONG committee's request that the contract be amended to extend into 2032. The choice of city manager is possibly the council's most important power and greatest responsibility. The city manager makes innumerable day-to-day business decisions that directly affect the governance of the town. Many of these decisions not escalating to council for approval or oversight, and that's what he's hired for, of course. By guaranteeing the city manager his position for another 8 years, seven and a half, until mid-2032, this council will effectively nullify one of the most important powers of our elected representatives of the most important position in the city. Now, of course, they can criticize his job and say, well, we've got to remove him and get somebody else, but extending the contract to that length rather than a much more reasonable 4 years or 5 years makes that hurdle much higher for future councils who want to have their choice of city manager. It says in the charter, the city manager shall hold office at the pleasure of the majority of the city council. At the pleasure of the majority of the council. One must assume the intent of the law is to mean whoever is actually on the council at the time, not whoever was on the council 6 years ago or 7 years ago. I say nothing about the city manager's performance or salary or anything. I have no criticisms to levy against Mr. Mackey in terms of the performance of his work or what he's recompensed. I would still say this does not give council the legal power or moral right.
Thank you, Mr. Allen.
Thank you.
What the bloody... All right, there we go.
Thank you, Mayor. Josiah Lippincott, Ward 4. I want to talk tonight about Mr. Mackey's contract with the city. My main complaint about the way that these contracts are negotiated is that though Mackey is the most powerful administrative figure within the city, he's not elected. So he doesn't have any accountability to the people. Right now we have the council sitting up here and the mayor and the city manager are sitting together, and between them, as well as subdivided through committees, the administrative and executive power within the city is not unified and it's not fully accountable to the voters. So of course, when we have contract negotiations where people are upset with certain aspects of how the city is managed, we have events like this when we're talking about contracts, especially the length. I think each new city council, at the very minimum, should have the power to appoint the city manager that they would desire for the term that that exact council remains in power. So that's the starting point. There needs to be a direct connection between the vote and the people in power. But the more important point is that the city manager position should essentially be abolished and should be placed within the mayor's role. We should have a decisive executive who's in charge of the city, who's accountable to the voters. And this is a huge issue because a lot of us are witnessing what's happening in the city and we don't like it. I see an increase in homelessness, an increase in crime, an increase in drug addiction. We have infrastructure problems. We have questions about how we pay for the replacement of ongoing infrastructure. We have questions about the just the overall management of the city, the number of employees, and all of these questions are being settled outside of direct connection with the voters, and I don't think that's the right way to conduct business. So the reason I'm asking tonight for the council not to approve this contract is because there's a lack of accountability going on here. This contract should be tied directly to the consent of the people of Hillsdale. The numbers, all of these things, it needs to be lined up to what we can expect as voters to see outcomes that we want. And that requires that we have a strong central executive that's voted for by the people. No more division of power. It makes accountability hard to have. So this is, again, the length of the terms of this contract, the massive severance. Look, fired without cause. Look, if you're fired by the people, that's cause enough. But when we don't have that kind of accountability, then we can ask for these terms. 18 months of severance. That's unbelievable to me. And the kind of salary that's being offered, that needs to be in line with what the voters want. It needs to be in line with someone who lives in this city, who's accountable to the voters. So again, that's the proposal I'm bringing here tonight is we need accountability, we need the consent of the governed. This is a problematic arrangement, and to say the least. And it's upsetting for those of us who look at the city and find a lot to be desired. So that's my call tonight. I want to see a strong central executive. I want to see the charter changed. I want to see the city executive accountable to the voters.
Thank you, Mr. Lippincott. Podium's still open.
Right, thank you. My name is Eric Potes. I'm a member of the BPU board. I came tonight to speak on behalf of that board. I'm also a member of the personnel committee. So we have a personnel committee that reports up, and you guys see all of our voting records and what's going on with what we have. So I think Dave, Mr. Mackey here, has achieved unanimous support on his last review, which you guys are seeing. Based on the criteria that we have set up for him, there's 4 categories: financial management, operational performance, systems improvement, and customer service. For that reason, I'm here to offer our support as the BPU board for Dave. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Potes.
Mayor Stockford, it's so good to see you again, along with all the other council members. I'm Mike Prince from Hillsdale as well, and known Dave for close to 7 years. Mr. Mackey, I have known him to be very accountable, very encouraging. I have prayed for him and his family, as well as each person on this board that I love and appreciate. I don't know how you do what you do, but I know that it requires a lot of prayer and patience and understanding. With that being said, I'd like to see Dave continue on with the needed contract that he's requesting. I understand that there are a lot of misunderstandings, as there is with everything. I'd simply give you a quick illustration that really applies to all of us, and that is the very fact that we have to be careful as a pastor, as a minister in the community, that this happening not too long ago, people coming into the church, sheep's and wolves clothing. And it's our job as pastors to try to protect the sheep, as it is your responsibility to protect the citizens. And I know that, and I know that's a difficult job. And I know that you have to stand up for what you believe. But I do believe with all my heart that Dave has proved himself over and over again, and what he has done and what he wants to continue to do with the support of his friend. I do not represent the church. I represent me, a citizen here in Hillsdale that I love so very, very much. And so while it's our job to try to do our best to protect each other, my prayer is that we would continue to believe what the Bible says and pay a man what it's worth, and be thankful for all that God allows us to work together as a team, and not put others aside that are truly making a difference in our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor.
Ready? All right, my name's Barry Hill. I'm a longtime resident of Hillsdale. I've spoken to you before. I'm the past chair of the BPU, I'm the past chair of the EDC. Those roles, I've worked a lot with David Mackey. I know him to be honest, truthful, hardworking, got the foresight to keep the city moving forward. In my working life, I was the president of a company that had 1,600 employees. So to say I've seen good managers and some that weren't so good is an understatement. David is a great manager. He came here, organized the city where we had silos within departments, not sharing the resources back and forth, did that. You know, he's done great things for the city. He inherited the roads. He didn't make those roads. Everybody's unhappy with the roads. But you've seen more work on the roads in the last couple of years than you have ever. So I'm in full support of his amendment, not his new contract, not what was out there on social media. Please just look and see what the amendment says. He needs to be supported. He works 24/7. I don't think any of you in this room work 24/7. So you talk about his wage, I think when you look at it on an hourly basis, he definitely earns his keep. He, he and I, all of us saw some of this stuff on social media, which I don't understand why some of your constituents called you because they saw the truth on social media. We know everything on the internet is true, right? So the stuff that was out there about his contract and his performance, if you saw that, was a person hiding behind a mask. And I seriously doubt if the Daily News would print anything that didn't have a person's name, address, and if they back-checked the facts. So that, I think, a lot of people stirred up in this room. And to say that Mr. Mackey pretty much works as a dictator that makes all these decisions, these people are his boss. He doesn't even have a vote at this meeting, for God's sakes. So to think that he can go off and do whatever, you gotta be kidding me. So please, listen to what O&G said, listen to what BPU said. You entrusted them with vetting this whole situation, and then make your decision, hopefully, in support of Mr. Mackey. He does a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Joshua Wechter. I live at 304 Scenic Drive. It's clear to me so far tonight that Dave Mackey is the favored candidate of the city employees. I'm not an employee of the city. That is to say, my life's wages haven't been earned from taxpayer dollars. So I'd like to give my thoughts on the subject. Dave Mackey, it seems simple to me, despite all that he had to say at the beginning. He wants a raise, and my quality of life has gotten worse in this city. This city's gotten worse. We have crime. I have to pay an extra $5,000 either all at once or at usurious interest rates in order to get my roads fixed on top of the two different property assessments I already pay. Crime has gotten out of control. It's clear that things are not better. But we're being told we need to trust the experts. And if there's anything that I've learned in the past 4 years, it's that experts really aren't to be trusted. If we want to keep on Dave Mackey, he needs to be kept on at the pleasure of the council, that is to say, the people who are actually elected to govern us. So the point that was just made, that he's accountable, well good, let's make him more accountable. I mean, I second what Mr. Lippincott said. I think we ought to have his term coterminous with elections. And I think that people are going to remember, given what we've experienced, inflation going up, cost of living going up here, they're going to remember if this council votes to give Dave Mackey a raise while all of us are suffering. Thank you.
Wow.
Good evening. Chris Somnar, 1133 Meadow Lane, business owner, local business owner here at Vested Risk Strategies. I've lived here all but 6 years of my life, not just the last 6, and I can tell you I have served on a number of committees, including the Zoning Board of Appeals, the BPU, chaired the TIFA for over a decade. And in those capacities, as I emailed all of you, except for you, Mr. Beer, I don't think you have an email on mine, that have worked closely with Mr. Mackey and can tell you that in the 22 years since I've been back here in business, I have seen 5 different city managers, and I can't tell you how much better this city is in terms of operationally and otherwise than it was. So I think and if you look around to other communities, where we are in terms of where we could be. While it's 100% not on the agenda tonight, and this whole discussion of a mayoral form of government would be a disaster for Hillsdale, and if that's the mindset we're bringing into this, then you guys should approve this extension for no other reason, despite Mr. Mackey's excellent performance, than to protect us and protect future councils from itself. Right, to try and bring in someone with the skill set that Mr. Mackey has, to finish the idea that Mr. Terry was just bringing up, there is a incredible amount of competence required. And I saw this serving on the BPU board, whether that's trying to deal with regulations at the wastewater plant, unfunded mandates to replace lead lines, right, in terms of coming back to the houses, upgrading electrical systems, not to mention the fact that you're trying to repair roads, keep everybody happy with leaf debris pickup, run public safety, and all the other operations of city government. Absolutely reiterate my email, and I'm sure there are others who will come up and total the accomplishments of Mr. Mackey. But just if we had something that where the city manager served at the pleasure of this board every 2 to 3 years when elections came up, you would not be able to recruit a candidate. And Mr. Terry can tell you the last time we went through this, how difficult it was to find and recruit and draw the right candidate here to Hillsdale. And Mr. Mackey has done an outstanding job. Thank you.
Sounds like he's a dictator. Hail Caesar. Hey.
Hello. I apologize. I have laryngitis, so I'll try to speak as slow and clear as possible. My name is Melissa Deschard, and I'm the Executive Director of Hillsdale Community Thrift. And I just want to say to Mr. Mackey, thank you for everything that you are doing. I apologize at this time. You're in the spotlight, and I'm not, and so I'm sorry. Thank you for taking a little bit off of me today. The thing that I have found living in Hillsdale since 1995 and living in Florida for 6 years is that everyone's never happy. Somebody's always unhappy with something, but it's always what is best for the city as a whole. And from the one thing that I have seen is many people are complaining about the $5,000 extra to get our roads fixed. I don't know about you, but to fix my vehicle is actually quite expensive. I would rather pay the next $5,000 so that the next, 2 generations don't have to fix their vehicles. While yes, it does bring in great business for the local dealerships and the local mechanics, the thing about it is that we're not the only city that does this. Jackson does this. Many cities across the nation do this because there's never enough money to fix the roads. And the one thing is that it's always curious when people always say that a position should be elected. It's such an important position that when you go to a new job, if you ever remember starting a new job, right? You walk in, you're somewhat clueless. You might think you know what you're gonna do when you walk in there, right? And so if we're gonna start replacing people every, 6 to 8 years, they're saying, that will be more detrimental to our city because it's a restart every time. I would rather have somebody who is held accountable. I mean, let's be honest, we have social media. I mean, you can't sneeze wrong in this county without somebody saying something on information station or the nosy butts of Hillsdale. So, let's be honest. I mean, there's not much that goes on in this city without people knowing. Thank God for social media. The one thing that I can say is that he is transparent, and he is kind, and he has definitely been patient with me, and y'all know how passionate I can be. So the one thing is, I just want to leave with is thank you, Mr. Mackey, and you've done a great job.
Podium's still open.
I'm Dale McCurry. I have not been here for at least a decade. 3 South Broad. I have no ability to comment on the effectiveness or the aptitude of the job that you do. What I do have the ability to do is comment about how I perceive in times of great inflation and times of fiscal stress for everyone, that there's a 33% raise that's being proposed and a 3-year severance at 240 or 250. That's $750,000. And in 1 year, that could equal $1 million. And I never saw $1 million in a year. So my comment is that it's distasteful, I think, for the public to see civil servants be awarded large sums of money. And I read the comments about your job performance, and although all favorable, my bottom line was you do your job, and you do your job pretty well. But I'm not sure if a 33% raise and a $750,000 severance, even if not for cause, there are lots of people that are relieved of responsibilities without cause. And so my comment is that I think that these things could be tempered. I have no objection to somebody being paid what they're worth, but I think there's a temperance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeremiah Regan, Ward 3.
Sorry, Jeremiah, there you go.
You're all right. We'd have a couple citizens come up and tell us that we need the expertise of the city manager. And it brings up the question of whether we as citizens are capable of self-government or whether we must rely on experts to direct our lives. The proponents of expert rules say that citizens cannot govern themselves. That may cause one to question why we should take those citizens' opinions seriously if they're not capable of governing themselves. Mr. Mackey has told us he does not create the policies such as the special assessment districts that he enforces. That's true enough, but any of us who have been in this council chamber and seen him prevail on the members of council and on the citizens by telling them they will not get a new road in their lifetime unless they submit to the special assessment knows the influence that he wields. He smirks now, a common example of his condescension toward the citizens of this city. Now, the Constitution vests executive authority in the president, but he serves at the pleasure of the people. The city manager model is designed to ensure that the city manager is not accountable to the people. That is a bad model for those who believe that citizens can govern themselves, as I do. Mr. Mackey surely disagrees. That should be up to the discretion of the council. This council and the next council. This council is about to be replaced. We have several council members who will not be serving in a few short weeks. This vote should be left to the newly elected city council that the will of the people may be expressed as regards Mr. Mackey's contract. And if those people decide that, for example, they are not satisfied with the city manager who is not subject to the rules he enforces on the citizens, they may choose to hire a new city manager. That decision should be left to the people. It is a fundamental rule that a ruler of a free society, that a ruler ought to be subject to the same rules he enforces on others. So in closing, I would recommend that the council not extend Mr. Mackey's contract at this time. There's plenty of time remaining on it and plenty of time for calm deliberation by the people's newly elected representatives. Thank you.
Thank you. Podium still open. You look great, Ken.
Thanks. Anyways, I've seen a lot of city managers too. Linda Brown and, I can't think of the names, there's been so many of them, honestly. But that Lively, and there's one before him, and yeah, there's been, at least 5 in my lifetime. I've been able to come to David anytime we've had a problem. It don't always go my way, but he always says, somebody was saying that he gets to dictate. No, he doesn't. He has to go back to you guys and get permission to do anything. I don't know how many you have to show me your hands, who's leaving this year, or whatever. Yeah, that's a bunch of them, that's for sure. That's a whole bunch of them leaving. But quit pointing fingers, the guy does his job. I'm a business owner, I own a couple of 2 businesses. I try to be respectful to my community. As far as the $5,000 a hit on our taxes, that sucks, folks. It's terrible. But these roads have been bad long before any of these guys got on did their jobs. The job has to go farther than that. We all have to pitch in a little bit. I don't want to. I'm gonna end up paying almost $100,000 in taxes because of this, on the properties I own, unfortunately. You say, well, I own more properties, so I'm richer. No, I gotta pay taxes just like everybody else in this building. So don't push it all off on a guy that's trying to do his job, because he does do his job. I don't always like it, trust me. We've had a few problems, but I gotta tell you, maybe you don't need to make that decision tonight. Or whenever you're supposed to make the decision, but I gotta tell you, somebody might break the right one, because I've been through a few of them, and you can't even have a conversation with them in their office. And that's about all I have to say. But he's a good man.
Thank you, Ken.
CJ Toncray. I don't have any complaints about the job that's being done, but I wanted to reiterate what the gentleman was saying in regards to, is this the time to increase it 33%? It's a struggle. It is a very big struggle what's going on right now, and I think the timing, if I heard right, we are 3 years into a 7-year contract, which means 4 more years. Why are we doing this now? Why don't we wait? Put it on the back burner. It's not to say that Dave isn't doing a great job and that he's worth it. That has nothing to do with it. It has to do with, can the city handle the expense? And when you're increasing it that much, and you are doing the special assessments and these, and I understand that the voters voted, the ones that actually voted to increase some of these, what do you call them? Anyway, that just passed, the 3 that just passed in August, thank you. It is really a stress on normal citizens, and I just think that the council needs to rethink the timing. Just, so that the citizenry feels like they're being heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Podium's still open.
Mayor, City Council, former Mayor Scott Sessions, 102 Cold Spring Circle. I'm here to support City Manager David Mackey. Over the last 9 years, I have seen how well Dave Mackey has worked as a city manager, moving the city forward in all areas. I'd also like how ONG committee highlighted City Manager Mackey's performance over the last year. We need to keep Dave Mackey as the Hillsdale City Manager due to his experience and his leadership, his dedication, and his will to make Hillsdale a better community to live in. I'm asking you to support Dave Mackey as the City Manager of Hillsdale. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I haven't even been on social media. I didn't know anything about this. So I was like, whoa. My thing is, my question is, why now for an increase, and why now to extend the contract?
Because
Is
he's
he
up for a review.
got another job offer? And you buy. And then also a 33% increase, we just got $100,000, I think we got the $100,000 from the college from vacating a street, plus the 1.7 million that's gonna go in an endowment. So that money, I thought, was possibly gonna go for the roads, which it's not on the agenda, so I won't talk about that right now. But again, my question is, why now? And I mean, if he does have 4 years left, and I don't know if he's, I mean, I see things in town I'd like to change, but as far as the job, I'm not even gonna comment, just why now?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elias McConnell. I'm in Ward 3. There's been a few things that I agree with, a few things I disagree with. One of them would be, or something I agree with is, I don't understand why now. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm a small business owner here in Hillsdale. If one of my employees came to me and said, hey, I want to make it so I can work here for the next decade, and I would go, cool, why? And I'd want to know the reason behind why are they staying. Do they love their job? Are they staying for that reason, or are they just staying because it's security and that's why they want to extend? And then the next question would be, are they asking for more money? And then I'd say, why? Why are you asking for more money right now? You know, the company's not doing well. That's what the city government is doing right now. I don't understand why this is the thing. We have two people who can't be reelected here currently. I'm just wondering why we can't push this into November, or actually that's when the election is, but I don't know when you guys actually change office. But I would just suggest that you move that on to next year and let's talk about it. He's got plenty of time left to show that he's still what seems like a decent human being. I don't hear a lot of complaints about how terrible he's done his job, but I think extending his contract any amount of time is just let it play out, let it go a little bit. Thanks.
Thank you.
He's due for a review, you idiots.
Hi, Sam Negus, Ward 3. Mr. Mackey may have addressed this point before I walked in, so I apologize and would welcome a correction here, but it was my understanding that there's something in the city charter saying that the city manager has to live in the city. Is that, I was surprised not to see anyone make a comment on that. Was that still the case, or did that get cleared up?
That's that's been talked about a lot of times, and it's our understanding per the city attorneys. Actually, it was a previous city attorney that told me that you can't enforce residency requirements on employees. And since Dave's an employee, not elected official, I don't know if it's equal opportunity or what it is, but that's right, Tom?
Okay.
They were held to be unconstitutional, if I recall.
Okay, well, I'm not in favor of things that are unconstitutional. Although it sounds like that might have been rammed through the 14th Amendment like everything else. I'm not in favor of most of those either. But there's nothing we can do about it at this particular level. Alas, secession, repeal, I don't know, we tried a few of those. Anyway, that seemed like a good argument to me. I didn't wish to impugn Mr. Mackey's performance. I think the council is probably competent to judge that, and I don't want to make anything bordering on a personal comment, but if that was the case, that would seem to be a valid concern to me. Although the fact that we can't enforce things of that nature on a public employee would seem to be an additional point in favor of Mr. Lippincott's suggestion that executive power is better vested in an office that is elective and directly accountable. Some of the comments that have been made against that are understandable and coherent, that you need expertise. The implication being that we can't rely on people to find a candidate with sufficient competency, or if you did, you can't rely on people to vote for them. The implication is that people are stupid. I'm a pessimist, I tend to agree with that. People are stupid. The problem with that is those are basic arguments against democracy. As my fellow countryman, fellow lover of America, but unlike me, not a naturalized American, Winston Churchill famously quipped, "Democracy is the worst form of government, with the single exception of all of the other ones." It is what it is. If you don't trust the people to vote for a good mayor, then I guess we're all just screwed. The thing that I'm more concerned about, that we're not talking about today, I'll probably come back when it's properly on the agenda, but it is on the agenda as new business, which is setting a date to talk about Three Meadows. I think we could find more creative ways to solve the housing shortage, and I would rather see our housing problem solved with houses that look like they belong here rather than could be picked up and plopped anywhere. I like this place because it is where it is and it is what it is. And I don't care for more houses that could be pooped out in any town from here to Timbuktu. But I'll come back and complain about that another day.
Thank you, Sam. Podium's still open.
Before you start, can I congratulate you on working microphones and a sound system? They were not here when I was before. Okay, start my time.
Thanks, man.
I'll go after the Brit, so you guys still have some goodwill in you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilman, Councilwoman. It's been a little while since I've been in this room. Typically it was on the other side of the dais here, but I'm happy that there are others who are willing to serve on the council, which is basically volunteer work without the feel-goods. I also had to show up to congratulate Councilman Sharp on his many years of service. We disagreed about many things over the years, but I respect his contributions to our city. I've come to speak about the amendments to the city manager's contract. I should start by saying that I think Dave Mackey has done good work and also helped calm Hillsdale ship in the troubled waters that it was in when he arrived. In many cases, he has helped the mayor and council dig out of the hole we found ourselves in a little less than a decade ago. To balance that out, though, I believe that the people should be in charge, and that it's a fundamental failure of government to ask taxpayers for more money to deliver basic services, especially in light of this contract amendment approved by the O&G committee. Many families are scraping by in our city. We're a poor city, and sometimes poor cities are just priced out of things that more wealthy cities enjoy. A $200,000 city manager / BPU director is one of them. The median annual income in Hillsdale is $50,000 to $60,000. This contract, as I understand, just gets us approaching $200,000 in annual salary. Take the name off the top of the contract, and I hope you'll realize that this amount is fundamentally unjust to the citizens of Hillsdale, especially the taxpayers. There may be some in this room who make that kind of money, but they are few, and I doubt any of them work for government. I'm also appalled, and I think you should be, that this contract amendment is for 7 3/4 years, binding many future councils to your decision. That is not right, and it's a fundamental departure from the principles of legislative power. And what's even worse is that if the people, through their elected representatives, decide to terminate the city manager's employment, we would be on the hook for nearly $500,000 in salary and benefits, while paying the new city manager his salary. And for cause would be taken to court. You could say it's for cause or not, but when $500,000 on the line, you bet that would go to court. A few months severance has always been more than generous. How many people in this room have a severance guarantee? I don't think any. Even federal government employees at the highest level, GS 15, step 10, are limited to 1 year in severance. And the federal government can print its own money, much to our detriment, of course. It's baffling that any contract would be approved with anything more than a few months. By approving something like that, you're making whoever is city manager impossible to fire, which means that there is little to no accountability to council and therefore to the people. The fundamental question here is who is in charge? Either the council and the people are in charge or the city manager is in charge. I believe the former is the only proper way to run government. You can't say you're for safety and roads if you approve this exorbitant contract amendment. The current contract gets us closer to expiring, and then we should see what we can get after that. I would also suggest that if the city manager did decide to go somewhere else or retire, it would be time to consider
Thank you, Matt.
Scott's proposal. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Jordan Adams, Ward 3. I'm not here to speak at all about Mr. Mackey's performance or anything like that. I just want to clarify that I think normally when we let the contract run out and the closing months of it or the year preceding work on a new contract. I understand this to be an amendment. It did sound off the top that this would be just a 3/4 of a year extension amendment to it, but based off of the text of it, it does go, currently the contract would go through 2028, this one will extend it to 2032. So one of the concerns I have then is that what we're doing here tonight is great because it's deliberative and the council does get to make a choice. And this is how it's supposed to work, and we have some folks saying let's trust the city and the experts and the employees a little bit more. The other half saying, we want the council to listen to constituents. That's great. The problem is that if this extension has happened here and this amendment goes through, is that you're going to bind the council up and the mayor for the next 8 years. I mean, there's a chance. There's a chance that we certainly will have a new mayor in that time. There's a chance we may have a second new mayor within that time. Within that time period, the entire council could be different. Everybody could be gone, and it would still be binding on that. So, I think that's the crux of it here. It's like what we're doing tonight is great, and this is what should happen. This should happen every time there's a council. This should happen every 2 years at most. Or at the worst case scenario in my mind, wait until the contract expires or comes to the end. So my main question then is, why does this happen now? That's the biggest question for me. It's like, why does this come up just now? Somebody said maybe Mr. Mackey has another job offer, which I understand, right? You're trying to get a different job, you get a good offer to play it off of it. That's fine. That's good negotiating. Or is it an electoral concern, or what is it? So. And went through the ONG committee, and the folks are on there, so they can address that as they see fit. But those are my comments for tonight, and I hope that you will consider them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Voting is still open.
Ted Jansen. I'm thoroughly confused by what some people have been saying, because I'm looking at the amendment to employment agreement, city manager. Nothing in here is about a pay raise. I have no idea where this phantom pay raise comes from, this 33%, other than through false information on bogus sites. All the council is asked to do is to extend the contract for 4 more years beyond what it is. I'm just wondering, people talk about, well, there has to be some accountability. City manager is accountable to each and every one of you. If he's not doing his job, then you can get rid of him. There came a time where the people felt that the city council was not being accountable to us. And we had, I think it was 2008, the uprising, with charter amendment to get rid of the city manager viably. And 2/3 of the people agreed with us that the city council was not accountable to us. And Mr. Weigel left. To this idea, every 2 years there's an election. Some of you leave every 2 years. We're going to have a review of the city manager contract every 2 years and say, okay, sorry, the new guys don't like you. Goodbye. You'll never get a city manager to ever take that job. We're also looking at a city manager who's not only the city manager, but the director of BPU. You think there are many individuals out there who are willing not only to be a city manager, but also be in charge of running BPU? Get real. We are very fortunate that Mr. Mackey can do both jobs for us, and as testimony has been before us, he's done a great job of being a city manager and leading our BPU. So look at this contract, let's extend it and get rid of all this little petty drama from the false sites. Thank you.
Thank you. Podium still open.
My name is Russell. You've heard a lot of people, so I'll be quick. I oppose the extension of the city manager contract. I think it's foolish that the council would tie the hands of future elected representatives in this way. It's an incredibly lengthy contract. 4 years is the current one. Why double it? Why double the severance? There aren't good reasons to do that, and I think it's deeply irresponsible if the board, city councilmen, vote to establish this in light of hamstringing future city councils from the most powerful and effective tool for holding folks accountable. It's not a personal slight, but it's a really foolish precedent to behave this way. So, real quick, thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Brianna Regan, and I live in Ward 3. I would just like to say that I do not support the extension of the city manager's contract at this time. I think if the city manager is doing a good job, as many claim that he is, then shorter term contracts that are more accountable to the people and their representatives on the council should be easy to approve. And at the very least, I would just urge the current council to delay any vote on new contracts until after the election. Thank you.
Thank you. Podium's still open.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, City Manager. My name is Ivan Pongrasic. I live in Ward 3, and I did not have a very pleasant experience with the City Manager over the last 6 to 24 months. While there was a survey being done for the fixing of our street, it was discovered that the back fence in our property was jutting out too far into the back alley. That fence had been in there when we bought the property in 2000. We had that fence, we believed that was our property, nobody had ever told us otherwise, and we were told that we need to move it. And when we tried to reason with the city, went with Jason Blake, some other people, we talked to them. It took a while. It took about 18 months before finally in May we were shut down and said, no, you got to move the fence. And at that point, my wife went and talked in front of the Public Works Committee, and it was unanimous by Councilman Veer, Soha, and Palladino that we should have an extension until September 1st. And we believed that we were working within that frame to find another solution. What had happened, that we received about a month and a half later, a letter from Mr. Mackey informing us that we need to take the fence down now, by July 1st. We reached out to Mayor Stockford. We reached out to Councilman Palladino, and they said, no, that is not correct. You, in fact, have until September 1st. That is a legally binding deadline extension. We thought we were still working within the rules, and in early August, we actually got a lawsuit from the city against us, which was completely shocking. We couldn't believe that such a thing could happen because we believed we were working through the rules. We again reached out to Mayor Stockford and Councilman Palladino, and they said, no, they cannot do that. You have legally until September 1st to actually find another solution for your back fence. Mr. Mackey at that point said, when Mayor Stockford actually told him that you can't do this, he said, I do not recognize the authority of the council committees. The lawsuit stands. And at that point, the only thing we could do is just move our fence. And we were shocked, actually, by the level of coercion that we were experiencing when we thought we were working within the city. That's an expense of $23.50 that we have to bear without being reimbursed for it, despite the fact that we had received multiple city permits to upgrade that fence. So I do not see the accountability by the city manager to the council.
Thank you, Ivan. Podium's still open. Alrighty, we'll close the podium. We'll move into the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we've got approval of bills, city and BPU claims of October 3rd. We've got payroll September 26th and October 10th. City council minutes of October 7th, finance minutes of October 7th, the election commission minutes of October 10th, O&G minutes of October 10th, community development committee minutes of October 14th. There's a noise variance request for Hillsdale College's Founding Fest. There's an investment report as of September 30th, 2024. Finance reports for quarter ending September 30th. There's BPU transmission line clearance. There's a BPU Eaton Yukon AMI software support, there's BPU sewer main lining, there's BPU ITC shared transmission asset sale. Is there any discussion on any of the items in the consent agenda? I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Soha. Can I have a roll call, City Clerk?
Yes. Councilwoman Pratt? Yes. Councilman Sharp? Yes. Soha? Stuchel? Beer? Yes. Wolfram? Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
Councilperson Morrissey? And Palladino? 9-0 approved.
Thank you, Katie. We'll move past consent agenda into communications petitions. And item letter A is My Hillsdale app. Is Sam here, or do you want to take this, Dave? Okay, well, there's an app that you can get on your smartphones if you've got a Samsung or an Apple phone. It's called My Hillsdale app. It's got all sorts of great information on it. If you're a resident, I would highly recommend it. You can handle your BPU stuff from it. It'll give you updates on stuff that's going on in the city, fire hydrant flushing, leaf pickup, etc., etc. So, any discussion on this item? All right, yes. So, we'll move into item letter B on communications petitions. Is the annual Hillsdale Halloween party. That is Thursday, October 31st at the high school where it's always at, the high school cafeteria. And is Ted still here? Well, Ted plays a huge part in doing it every year, so thank you, Ted. I take my kids to it. If you've got young kids, I would encourage you to do so. We'll move into communications petitions. Item letter C, Don Hicks for state representative. Mr. Hicks is here. Don, you want to take the podium?
Yeah, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be with you. I appreciate the invitation, Mayor Stockford, Councilman, Councilwoman. Pleasure to be with you. I am indeed the Democratic candidate for District 35. Being a Democrat in the two-county area is an adventure, to say the least, but I'm kind of a non-traditional candidate. I believe strongly in fiscal responsibility and am far to the right of my political party. I believe in balanced budgets and transparency. That's not just both on the state level, but on the federal level as well. We're leaving our kids with a generational debt that's unacceptable. I believe in civility and respectfulness, and so I've tried to conduct my campaign with that in mind. I was an educator for 34 years at Bronson High School, a government and economics teacher, so obviously I see myself as a champion of education, an advocate for the farmer. I don't take PAC money, I don't take dark money, so I get to run my campaign the way I want to run my campaign, and I very much enjoyed doing so. I just wanted to introduce myself, let you see a face to the name, and if I am able to garner votes, I appreciate that. So again, thank you for the time. A pleasure to be with you this evening. I love the grassroots government. I mean, I salute all of you for, and it really is, volunteering your time. And oftentimes it's thankless, and it can be incredibly frustrating. So I salute you. Thanks again.
Thank you for coming out tonight, Don. Okay, we will move on to item letter D in communications petitions, which is Materials Management Committee. Is this tied in with your update, Commissioner Ingalls?
No, it's separate.
Okay. Well, you were listed on the email here, so Katie, do you have anything to add to this, or should I just advise people to look in the packet regarding it?
I'd advise. I think it's a notice, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Looking for a committee.
Yeah,
City
trying to put together a committee for materials management. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. If I read it correctly, they're looking for one of us on city council.
Yeah, they need one of us. I think Commissioner Ingalls is probably gonna bring that up. Needs to be an elected official from the city if we want to have a person on it. Since we're talking about it right now, is there anybody that's interested in that? Because I am not.
Well, I would suggest we wait until the second meeting in November to discuss that.
Okay. Just nobody's in, I mean, all right, we can do that. Are you joking? Okay, well, we have a volunteer, so. All right, we'll move to item letter E. Hillsdale County Commissioner update, Commissioner Ingles.
Thank you. Mayor, Council, City Manager, and Josh, thank you. About the materials management, I guess I do have some additional comments on that. One, remember, it's a new law. The clock is ticking and it will be implemented. It started January 6th, and in July, we had to declare our notice of intent. We had an extension, and we, in September, declared our notice of intent for Hillsdale County to be a single county for materials management. I do have a packet that I'll send that comes from Eagle, and I'm glad you said something tonight, because the clock is ticking to a point where by January of 2025, we need to have this committee together. And so I'm working hard on trying to do that. And other than that, I don't have an update. The courthouse is coming along. You'll see new copper around the mansard, and the scaffolding will be coming down soon. So if there's any questions, happy to answer.
Any questions for Commissioner Ingles while he's at the podium? Councilman Palladino.
Does the county have any vote over this Lifeway site plan? Sorry, laryngitis a lot.
No, so the site plan goes to the planning commission, which is the city. County does not review those site plans.
What an idiot.
And
He doesn't even understand that.
Then we're gonna get to that, because Councilman Soha asked for it to be added to the agenda, but Councilman Morrissey, have you guys already approved that site plan on planning commission? For the Lifeways facility, and, okay.
The way that's done is that we're simply reviewing the site plan. That's true both of Three Meadows and Lifeways. It has nothing to do with whether we like it or not, it's just a site plan.
Yeah, so there's a checklist, right? And you go down the checklist, and if it meets the requirements, then you're.
Yes.
And if you deny it, you're gonna set yourself up for lawsuits.
Okay, well, we can talk a little bit about that further on. Any more questions for Commissioner Ingles? Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Okay, we will move out of communications petitions. Oh, sorry, Robert, I thought that was a new business, my bad. We'll move into item F on communications petitions, Lifeway site plan.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilman Morrissey, for that explanation of what Planning Commission did. I just wanted the public to know, because I received a number of inquiries about it. All were in opposition of it, I believe. I don't recall one that was in favor of it. And my response to these inquiries through email was, I've looked into the expansion, and while I agree with the arguments, I have the unfortunate news to explain this matter is not presently coming before council, nor, as I understand, is it required to be presented to council, as it is a private transaction between two entities. And as Councilman Morrissey explained, they were just approving the site plan for the use of the property. I also learned, since I wrote this email, that some people were inquiring, myself included, that it was taking property off the tax rolls. Well, a not-for-profit already owns the property, and so they're just making a transfer of property that's already off the tax rolls, so that's not a valid argument. If anyone is in opposition to Lifeway's building at the intersection of Industrial and Beck, correct? I believe, right across from where the roller rink, what used to be the roller rink is, I would suggest contact the Lifeways board, lifewaysmi.org, or come here and go to the county commissioners meeting and just let your voice be heard in public comment. Now, as Commissioner Ingles said, and I spoke to another commissioner today, they don't have any sway in this either. It's the Lifeways board. But I do understand the opposition to it, and thank you, Mayor and Council, for adding this to the agenda. I'm welcome to discussion.
Thank you, Robert. Is there any discussion regarding this item?
Yeah, one of the emails said that there's plans to have a shelter there. Is that correct?
As I understand it, Councilman, there will be a 2-week, transitional shelter included in the property.
Okay, so one of the concerns here is that there's a school a few hundred yards away. And I don't know if we have any regulations on the book about shelters or drug treatment facilities in proximity to schools, but I would assume that's something we could potentially legislate through ordinance, if necessary.
You can't, oh my God, these guys are idiots.
Councilman Sharp.
Lifeway is currently located by the sheriff's department, correct?
Yeah, but they lost their building.
Right, they're gonna lose that building.
Yeah.
Okay, then, if you go south, you go through a driveway by the gas station or city gas pump stations there, and that church right between, there's a road there. That road goes to Geyer School. So there's one there already. You got a school, it's right there where Lifeways is, so remember that. So when you say there's one place where they're proposing it, it's already near a school right now. Remember that.
That is true, but the sheriff's department's also right in between the school and the
Yeah. Very good. I think council has discussed this in the past, but okay, those facilities exist, but if we're gonna have a new one, does that one have a shelter? No. That doesn't mean we have to continue the policy, of course, and I think when we've discussed this, pretty much everyone agrees that a shelter needs to be fairly removed from urban areas, because that tends to be where crime and drugs are centralized, and you don't want people near those temptations if they're suffering from those illnesses.
Any more discussion, Councilman Wolfram?
So who is Lifeways buying the building from?
I don't know who they're buying the building from. Does anybody? Oh, just the plot to build on, that's correct.
Buying a plot of
Yeah.
land
That's,
from a private owner, is that the deal?
They're working out, my understanding is they're working out a long-term lease agreement with another nonprofit, the Center for Family Health or something like that. That already owns it, and it is, as Councilman Soha said, already tax exempt.
any more discussion on this item? Okay, we'll move out of communications petitions. We'll move into item A, Sandy Beach entry fee. I asked this to be kicked to, Community Development Committee, well, originally to Public Services Committee, and then it was moved to Community Development. I would still like to see free entry into Sandy Beach for city residents. Community Development didn't feel like that might not be financially responsible, and they offered to meet me halfway as opposed to doubling the fee up to $10, leaving it at $5 for city residents. I said that was an acceptable compromise, and I appreciate you guys' compromise on that. Cynthia, Gary, and Tony. And since you're the chair, would you like to take this?
Yeah, because, going forward, just what we've heard tonight as far as the economic stress that a lot of the Hillsdale residents are feeling. So we decided to keep the $5 fee for the entrance to Sandy Beach, which it is currently. We're gonna raise the L County, so anyone outside of the city limits will be paying $10. But then for both Out County and city residents, if you want an annual fee, it's $50 for the season. Now keep in mind that where they collect these fees, parents are able to drive all the way to Sandy Beach, drop their kids off, and take off, and are not charged anything. So there are still some even cheaper options. Assuming, of course, they have a proper babysitter, I guess. But, and I think in consideration because of the current fee schedule and the amount of monies that it's creating for Sandy Beach, I think from the season passes and daily passes, it generates about 19,000, and that a large portion of that is paid to students that actually man the operations as far as in collect these fees. So we thought it would be prudent to leave a little bit on there, because if you give something away, at least in my world, it doesn't have as much value. And again, you do have the option, those people that are really strapped for cash, that they are able to drop their kids off at no cost to them at all. Thanks.
Thank you, Tony.
In addition, by making the $50 for the annual fee the same for both residents and non-residents, that by people may decide to go ahead and buy, if you're a non-resident, go ahead and buy that annual pass, and that would reduce the number of transactions that actually go on, because you'll just, when they drive in, they'll just show their pass rather than having to make change or whatever. So I thought that was part of what would happen, is it push the number of that out of city residents into buying this annual pass, and then the people wouldn't have to spend time changing money for that. That's why I suggested that we make it $50 for in-state, in-city and out-of-city for the annual pass.
Anyways, sometimes we don't get what we want in government, and I wanted free entry into Sandy Beach for the residents. I thought that would be nice right now, since everything else is going up, and since at the end of the day it is their tax dollars that pay to upkeep that place. But I also understand the flip side of that, and people have always paid admission as long as I can remember, and even as long as Tony can remember, into Sandy Beach. So thank you once again for the compromise. Did you have something to add, Councilman Palladino?
I wonder if Tony, you remember I think you told me last week, the numbers about the cost for manning the station there, and then the total revenue from the fees collected.
Yeah, it's actually in the minutes, it's in the packet. Just to give you some background, in 2007 to 2008, the entrance fee was raised from $3 to $5 for the daily pass, and a seasonal rate of $25. In 2022, the seasonal rate was changed to $50. The passes last year generated around 19,000, with an additional amount of 7,000 coming from concessions. The cost of the seasonal help to run the beach, as well as the concession inventories and supplies, amounted to about 20,000. Keep in mind that this did not include the maintenance provided by the Public Services Department, and I can't remember the price that Jason told us when we had the meeting because he was present, but it was substantial, the amount of the work that our public service people do there, emptying the trash and making sure everything's up to snuff. So we just thought that it was prudent to make sure that the beach stays and maintains the nice quality it is, and that at the same time giving the residents of Hillsdale a little bit of a break.
Any more discussion on it?
Yeah, I mean, the frustrating thing here is that we're putting $20,000 of expenses, or 20,000 in expenses, and only netting 27. So we're making $7,000 to charge our residents, 27,000.
Well, Josh, take into consideration, I'm not sure if what the figure was from Jason, but it was, if you factored in the public service help that's required to maintain it, the city is not making any money. It's actually costing the residents money.
I'm not concerned about. I would actually be happier if it only cost $1,000 to man it, to actually get the fees, and then we had $25,000 in cash to maintain the parks. What's frustrating is that we have the employees there providing those services, but then all of that is money, or not all of it, 75-ish% is used to pay the employees who are collecting the fees.
Well, but before the meeting was over, Michelle and I were discussing, what would be options to cut down on the amount of money that goes towards the help there by utilizing some of the, speaking of not-for-profits, by utilizing some of the not-for-profit, opportunities that are in the city that provide job coaching for kids that I can guarantee you will be falling over each other to work at the beach for the summer. So I think that might be something that we might be able to get a grip on here in the next year or so. Any more discussion regarding this? Are you guys okay with that? You guys all right with going back down to 5 for that? Sorry for the headache. Appreciate everybody's willingness to speak about it and work on it. Yes.
Well, I think currently it is 5.
It is 5. It's
It is
supposed to
5,
go up to
yeah,
10
we're just
next
gonna
year.
raise the, out-of-city charge to 10.
Yes. Yeah. So, do we need a motion though, then if it's staying, do I have a motion to adopt community developments?
Yes.
Yes.
It is currently 10, and then we're taking it back down to 5.
Yeah. Do I have a second?
Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Wolfram, seconded by Councilman Veer. All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, we're finally in the new business, guys and ladies. All right, new business item A, first quarter budget amendments.
I'm here.
Oh, well, thank you.
So, for your first quarter budget amendments, we have, the normal projects that carry forward, because our construction season doesn't end conveniently at June 30th when our fiscal year ends. So we're rolling forward our street projects, water, sewer projects. In addition, we have in the general fund, you'll see in the budget detail, we have all our contracts settled, and we had a contingency set up in the general fund, and we're spreading it to all the departments. So it's a net zero impact to the total general fund budget, but it's putting the money in the right departments depending on how their contract's settled. So, with respect to non-general fund, you'll see there's something in here for Field of Dreams. They had, I believe, a sewer, issue there, and they need, a higher budget to pay for that. And then we have some, concert in the park donations, and we're increasing the budget there as well. Are there any questions on the details of the budget amendments for this quarter?
Any questions? I don't think so.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Appreciate it. Any conversation, or can I get a motion to, approve the budget resolution?
Support.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, seconded by Councilman Veer to approve the budget resolution. All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right, we will move into item letter B, Lou Bender Workshop. And Dave, I'll let you take this, and Will, if you could take that for a second so I can use the bathroom, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So this, on October 10th, the ONG committee had their meeting at 5 o'clock, and this was the second item that they discussed. The workshop is on team roles and expectations for department heads and elected officials. It is for, and I think it demonstrates just what we're going through and discussing here today of why we need to talk about those roles and expectations from the board, the elected officials, as well as the department heads. And this is basically strictly for the department heads and the elected officials. I will say that I have known Mr. Bender and been to many of his conferences and other things that he facilitates. In fact, he's been to Hillsdale. He facilitated back here early on in my tenure over at the library for some on council. I don't know if Bruce would have been there probably. He does an excellent job. He really gets down to how to make an operation better. And he's worked extensively in the public sector with councils, townships, boards. And I believe personally that he will do a great job here for this. And I think the $6,000 per travel will be well spent for this.
Thank you, City Manager. Any comments on this? Yes, Councilman Soha.
I don't see why we would expend this money from our budget at this time in our city's history, and I don't really see how putting council in front of a workshop for working together is going to benefit council's operations here in the chamber. I think it's good for us to have contentious battles and debates here sometimes, and getting all fuzzy and working together. And but the big part for me right now is the $6,000. I don't think is a wise expenditure of our funds at this point when we're charging assessments and the public perception. While I agree, I think they're unfortunately necessary at this time. The public perception is increasingly against the assessments, and then we're gonna spend $6,000 to fly a guy in from Florida plus his travel expenses when we have a plethora of PhDs right up the hill here who I'm sure, if we asked nicely, would entertain the idea of coming and helping facilitate such an event pro bono. So I am opposed.
Thank you, Councilman Soha. Any more discussion on this item? Councilman Palladino.
Yeah, we have 3 PhDs up here, but I think that's sort of beyond the point. We're just human beings. We can meet and discuss if we have issues. I've been saying since I'm on council that I think we need to get back to the practice of the department heads meeting with their respective committee chairs. Maybe, Michelle probably doesn't need to meet with us bi-weekly, but maybe Jason and Hefner and Mackie, maybe Adam should meet with Dave, and I should meet with Jason, and Tony should meet with, many community development folks. And we can just sort of chat and, get to know what's going on in the administration. That's one of the main problems here is there really is no divide between administration and politics. Maybe Katie taking the minutes here is administrative, but essentially everything the city does is political. And so we need to have open channels of communication about all of the administrative, so to speak, actions that are occurring in the city. And we can just do that. I think we should. I'm willing to spend the time. I don't think Kim's here, but Rob and Tony, you've both witnessed this. We've probably had Kim into a meeting to talk about the occupancy permits. I'm sure she's so irritated walking us through the logic of them and how she administers them over and over, because it turns out that we pass a policy that's one paragraph, a law, and she writes a policy statement that's 6 or 7 pages. Okay, so implementing ordinances is not always easy, but we don't always intend to do what is actually done administratively. I'm not blaming Kim for that. I'm actually praising her for being willing to work with us and talk about how does this work administratively? What are you seeing in practice? And we should just do that down the board. Okay, that's team building, if you want to call it that. Okay, my second more critical point is we're not adding up the little expenses every 2 weeks. We're going to spend $7,000+, I would assume, with travel expenses for team building. 2 weeks ago, we spent $16,000 on carpet. 6 months ago, we spent $30,000 on carpet. We're buying new machinery all the time, and I have a letter here from our police that says our police officers have to buy their own gear. Okay, so we're not adding up these little things bi-weekly, And then we come back to the people and say, we have no money for roads, we have to charge special assessments. Add the 6,000, add the 10,000, add all of these line items up, and you get a different budget. This is the problem we have with our budget. None of us know what we approve when we approve the budget. We see top line numbers of each department, and we don't know what that means. We're not seeing line items of every single dollar that is being spent by the city, which means that we aren't in charge, which means that we aren't accountable to you. This isn't a criticism of the city staff or the city manager, it's a criticism of our structure of government. Okay, we're probably not gonna get rid of the city manager system anytime soon. Okay, I don't think we should see ghosts on social media and freak out every time we see something. But we can take practical steps to improve the relationship between the city staff and the elected officials without spending money on out-of-state PhDs and then effective. I know we don't agree with this. That $7,000 is being raised from a special assessment. Money is fungible. It's that simple to me. That's it.
That was a great comment, Councilman Palladino, and I agree with you. Dave?
I do need to make a correction to that, Councilman Palladino. You say that no one knows what's in the budget. That's absolutely not true. We have council departmental budget meetings where we open the budget up for any questions by city council. And maybe 2 or 3 council members show up, and the rest of you don't. And that's your chance to actually ask questions and to dig into it, and you don't show up. So if we give you the opportunities and you don't show, but then you come here and complain you don't know what's in the budget, it's kind of disingenuous on my part. No disrespect, but we set up meetings, we have all the department heads come in, and they're yours to ask any question to, and you don't have the courtesy or the wherewithal to show up to learn the budget for your constituents. That's not on the city staff or us, or the budget process. That's on the members who don't show up.
Councilman Palladino.
This is good team building here. So here's the issue. Did any of you receive a line item of what was going to be spent this year? We actually started requesting it from the library. Not a fund amount, a line item. Did anyone know there was $6,000 budgeted this year for team building exercises? Did anyone know there was $16,000? I'm sure you could ask these questions, but you would have to ask 10,000 questions. I'm saying we need the information brought to us. I was at the budget committee hearings. I asked questions. The information isn't always provided line item. Dave, I come to you all the time with questions. I come to the city staff with questions. We're not paid to do any of this. We need the information in a way that's digestible. I've been requesting that for a long time. I've been requesting that we have bi-weekly or monthly meetings with city staff. Sure, I could put in more effort. I get paid $1,000 a year, okay? So I don't have all of the time to go search out every question about every line item. I need the information in front of me. You can blame me for that, totally understandable, that I'm incompetent, I don't understand the budget, I don't take the time. Well, I don't get paid to be here, okay? I need the information in front of me, and I think we should establish a procedure. Am I being absurd in asking for this?
Yes, you're being absurd.
I'm
You
being
get
told that I
paid to
haven't
do
asked
that. That's what
specific
you
enough
got elected to
questions.
do.
Does anyone on this council ask more questions than I do?
We can get you whatever information you want, Councilman Palladino, but I disagree because with one of your statement, because we provide the breakdown of those capital improvement items within those documents that are provided to you, or to the council. That said, I'm not pointing the finger at you or saying anything negative about that. Is if there's a better way we can present data to you, please let us know and we'll be sure to do it. Karen was here and she is a wizard with that stuff, so we will be happy to get you whatever you need.
Councilman Sharp has had his hand up for a minute.
I am one of the council people that actually goes and talks to the department heads. I've talked to all of them. I've gone to Jason, I've gone to the fire department, I've gone to police, I've talked to all of them. I take the time. I've been on council since 2007, that long. I understand how the budget works. I also know when we have the budget hearing sessions, we can ask questions and everything's broke down. Every committee is broken down. Every department's broken down. That's when you have your opportunity to ask questions. You came to one out of the two meetings. You missed one. You came to one and you weren't there at the second one. And you may have had an excuse because your child was sick or something that time. It may have been. But that is your opportunity to ask questions when it's broke down and you're talking to department heads. That is your opportunity to ask questions to have it broke down. If you still don't know, you contact the city manager. He will answer your question. That's what he's there for. He works at our discretion, demand. He's there for us. I'm not picking on anybody, but that's the facts.
Well, I think we could all do better at communication. I think that's just what's being said. So, did you have something, Councilman Soha?
I just think, to Councilman Palladino's point and to my objection to this, you know, we're asking austerity from our constituents, and maybe we could engage in some austerity here in the chamber.
Any more discussion? I mean, we had something similar to this when I first got on council. There was a class that they wanted council members to attend to learn how to interact with staff, and you know, we rejected that at the time too. So, Dave.
Just last comments on this. Just so you know, Mr. Bender is not a fuzzy facilitator. He's a former Marine, and he has a unique way about him, but he gets down to the nitty gritty and gets results. As far as training, everyone needs training to improve their performance. This council is no different, or the city staff. City staff is sent to training to improve their performance, benefits the city, and benefits the residents. Yeah, open communication is great, but I do recommend this to the council. If you say no, then we will not do it and move on.
Thank you, Dave. Councilman Stuchel.
One question, but the training is for both us and your staff, correct?
Correct. So the staff would come for a half-day Friday session, and then council would come for a few hours on Friday and for a few hours on Saturday morning to kind of, after we go through the...
And so I assume you have line item issues for training for your staff throughout different departments, and this probably falls within that. I mean, would you do this anyway?
Not necessarily this, but we do have training
dollars
within the budget.
But this would include us and the staff?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any more discussion? Motions, seconds, anybody? Motion to approve the proposal from Lou Bender and have the city manager schedule the workshop for January 17th and 18th. There's no motion, I'm moving on. All right, we'll move into new business item letter C, city manager annual review. Do we want the chair of ONG to take this, or? Yes, Dave.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one statement, and then I'll be available for questions as I participate. I just want to thank those who came out in support of this amendment and those who opposed it. As was mentioned earlier, this is one of the virtues or grassroots efforts of local government is transparency. You can see your representatives and you can most easily affect the city's decision. My job is to run, promote, and protect the city and BPU. anyone is interested in talking about the details of those three things, I'd be happy to share it with you. It's not an easy job and it's 24/7. I think many on council would say that I take texts from them at all hours of the day, weekends, vacations. I'm available to the city council and to the residents when situations come up. I take the job very seriously, and based on comments, most people, I believe that the city is heading in a good direction, which is great news for everyone here. That being said, I know council has received calls, letters, both for and against this item. I would just ask you to consider the unanimous recommendations of the VPU board and ONG committee and give fair consideration to the actual facts I went through at the beginning of the meeting and not distorted ones published to social media. We can laugh off social media, but it has a major influence, particularly where these facts were posted. To answer a couple of the questions, it was talked about a 33% raise and a $750,000 severance. That's completely inaccurate and not correct. It's untrue. Do I have a new job offer? No. I don't want to leave Hillsdale. And the question of why, I think, and this wasn't delineated from me, but it started with the BPU Personnel Committee, the board, and went to ONG, is security. Secure job security, knowing that having a 7-year contract currently, that it would recommend to go back to thereabouts the same amount, is great for me. Talking about the 2-year rolling contracts, I will tell you that you will not get a city manager to take 2-year rolling contracts. In this profession, city managers come and go, and the average is probably 3 years, whether they have a 3-year contract or a longer one. So the average is 3 years. I've been here for 9 going on 10. I would like to stay and continue it. I know I have 4 years left. I will continue to do my job through that term. Again, this is just more for security, getting me to a little longer term that they felt was warranted given my performance, as was echoed by many. So that's all I have to say, Mayor.
Thank you for your honesty, Dave. Will, would you like to?
City attorney, is there anything in the charter that says that this is illegal to extend the contract?
There's nothing that prohibits or addresses what the term would be for an extension.
And what about the city ordinances?
Nothing within the city ordinances.
And is there anything in the state statutes?
There actually is a provision in the Home Rule Cities Act, which, if you give me a second here, which is section 3D, which says the qualifications, duties, and compensation of the city's officers this is mandatory provisions that are required in a city charter. And so that's one of them. You have to have qualifications, duties, and compensation of the city's officers set out. If the city has an appointed chief administrative officer, city manager, the legislative body of the city may enter into an employment contract with the chief administrative officer extending beyond the terms of the members of the legislative body unless the employment contract is prohibited by the city charter. An employment contract with a chief administrative officer shall be in writing and shall specify the compensation to be paid to the chief administrative officer, any procedure for changing the compensation, any fringe benefits, and any other conditions of employment. The contract shall state if the chief administrative officer serves at the pleasure of the legislative body, and the contract may provide for severance pay or other benefits in the event the chief administrative officer's employment is terminated at the pleasure of the legislative body. So, since there is no provision in the charter that prohibits the extension of the contract for the term that's proposed, then that means under that section, it's okay.
Thank you. if there, I can move this if, and with further comment, right? Yeah, so I move.
Yeah, you can.
I'm moving it.
You're making a motion.
Making the motion, yeah.
To accept it as.
Yeah.
And I'll second it.
Okay.
And now we can have a discussion.
Okay.
Can I say something?
You got your hand up, yep.
I want to have the opportunity to vote on this because I've known this man for 9 years. I've seen what he's done. You take that opportunity away from me to vote and let another council come in here to vote. That is not fair because they've not worked with him long enough. And that's why I want the opportunity to vote. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce. Any other comments? Councilman Muir?
I'm gonna have to say, the only thing I really don't like about this recommendation, because it's a bundle of stuff. Because if we're talking about city's manager performance for the last year, a 2% pay raise, I'm all in, no problem. But then and currently, if it was a 3-piece deal, it'd make it a lot easier for me. Because at the same time, his current contract is good for 4 years, and as long as he maintains his performance, he'll probably get that 2% from this council. And David Mackey's done an incredible job. If you look at when he came in here, what was going on at the BPU, or, and just the terrible things going on down there, and the fact that with the miners, getting the miners into town, and the working with different government agencies. But I'm gonna say, and of course, I'm kind of biased, but because I was more involved in this one, was the college. I can remember years ago, because my family's been here for 60 plus years. And I can remember past councils, past staff saying, man, we need to get the college to purchase us a fire truck. Never happened. And, but now we're looking at a possibility that with this endowment, that the college going forward is gonna be a very significant contributor to this community. And from that standpoint, I just really give Dave a lot of, high fives and everything else. And the fact he's able to work with all the different departments. And there is a lot of truth in the fact that when you ever call him, I have a tendency to text, that's kind of my story. But he always gets back with you. If he's busy, he'll let you know, hey, I'm in a meeting, I'll get back with you. He's very approachable. And that being said, as far as on the 2%, 100% in. But I do struggle with the other stuff. And I struggle with the extension going from the 4 years to 8, because he's doing a great job. And I'm not really concerned about the severance portion of it, because that only comes into play if future councils come in and say, well, you know what, we're gonna take this city in a different direction. All of a sudden our priorities of this council are not the priorities of the present council, or this, we were to be the past. But I understand where he's coming from too, as far as having some continuity. He has kids, he's, going to school, and he wants some, put down roots, and he's been here, like you said, for 9 years. On the severance portion, I think 12 months is sufficient. Because if another council comes in and say, hey, we don't want your expertise anymore, and we're gonna go, like they said, look elsewhere, that gives him a year to figure out, where he's gonna land. And so that's my biggest struggle with this motion, is the fact it's a 3-piece. And I really would have appreciated if we could piece it out, because then it basically forces me maybe to make a vote that I might not otherwise want to make. And it's just, and I think there is a lot of credibility to say that other future councils should have a say in our city manager. And right now, the way the current contract is stated, now, I'm just gonna be directed at Tom, but if we were to vote this down, his current contract would stay in place, and could we bring back another motion on his merit pay for the year?
Yes.
We voted on his merit pay last year, if I remember right.
No, I know,
The merit pay is an annual.
yeah, but being that it's part of this motion,
Right,
so if the motion were to fail,
yes.
okay, and because we make another motion right after it, to just take it,
To
by
just address the merit pay.
yes,
Yes, because it would be a different motion over a different proposed amendment of the contract.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Wise words, as always. I share the same concerns that you do. And I understand what you're saying, Bruce, that you want to have your say in this, but I don't think that you would have appreciated it if you would have got elected to council and found out that you were beholden to all the decisions that the previous council made.
You are.
Go ahead.
Oh my God, these.
When they presented this to ONG, the 18-month, 24 months, I was, this is gonna be a hard one to get through. I hate to say this, nothing against you, Dave, but I'm kinda with Tony on that part of the thing. The 2% is absolute, but the 18 months and the 24, that makes me a little nervous, especially with the environment the way it is. But it's nothing against you, it's just dollars and cents on my part. And I just wanna make sure I have the right to take the vote tonight, and that's what I want.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Bruce. You know, I mean, I think lots of comments were made about social media. Boy, if I had a dime for every time somebody lied about me on social media, I would be getting paid as much as you, Dave. But you know, guys, I think the fundamental issue that was brought into play here was the timing of this. That when you suggest an extension of this length, when there is at least 2 council members that have mostly 2 feet out the door, another 3 council members that aren't eligible for re-election, and then it's just a couple weeks before an election when we know that there's gonna be new council members taking the podium. Boy, you sure can't blame the public for being like, hold on here a second, this seems suspect. Cause I admit I had the same misgivings right at the beginning of this, that this seems like a very flagrant attempt to try to hamstring the next several councils. And I want to be clear, nobody up here is talking about changing the form of government. I like the strong mayor system better, but that's not the form of government we have in Hillsdale. We are chartered with this council manager form of government. Those are the confines that we're working in. I've worked with lots of different city managers. We are lucky to have Dave. I think he does a fabulous job, and I also think that he's extremely well compensated for the great job that he does. So I think we're very fair with what we pay Dave, and I think that he repays us in kind by doing an incredible job. But I just, when there's 3 years left on the contract, it just seems goofy to tweak everybody's nose and extend it past that point when there's an election in just a couple weeks. And when I know I'm on my way out of here, I can tell you right now, I won't be running for another seat on city council, or obviously I wouldn't be eligible for mayor again for 4 years. I don't want to do this again. I've been up here since 2013, and it's a long time. And like Josh said, we don't get paid a lot to do this. It's really not a fun job. And I love the city of Hillsdale, but I feel like at this point I've done my part. I've done my public service, and when I get ready to hand this gavel off to the next person, I don't want them beholden to all the decisions that I made, because frankly, maybe some of them weren't great decisions. Not saying you weren't a great decision, Dave. I made the motion to hire you when we brought you on. So, you know, been up here through a lot of turnover of a lot of staff, and I hope that you stick around. I'm happy to hear that you're not looking for another job, because that was one of the first things that I thought too, is that you got a offer from somebody else. I know there's mixed feelings about you doing BPU in this, but that's a decision that we made, and I think that you've done a fair job on it. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's too tough a sell for me to extend this to 6 years past when my time on council is going to be over with. So I voted for every one of your contracts in the past. Happy to vote for whatever you need, but not something that's going to well live past my tenure on council.
I just have a comment in that there's two issues that I'm concerned about. I think Dave does a great job, and so it's not a discussion about how well he's performing. But by extending it to this 4 years, to 2032, the new council members that will be elected won't be able to have a say, in a sense, of observing how he's doing or anything else like that. So as some of the people that were discussing earlier said, well, why don't we just delay this until after the election? And I would feel a lot more comfortable by waiting until after the two council members, the new council members come in. I don't know how many there'll be, but the new council members come in. And then the other thing is, I do have a problem with the amount of the severance pay. I forget who was saying that 1 year seems to be more reasonable to me in amount of severance pay, and I know we're already beyond that, but I would be much more comfortable with a 1 year severance pay, giving him, if something were to happen, a year to find new employment. So that my concern is, can we just wait until after the election and the two new council members, or four new I don't know how many new council members will we have? Could we have four?
We'll have two for sure. We could have four.
Could have four new council members. Let them at least have an opportunity to have a say in what the contract's going to look like. So
the contract's there. The contract's right there, and it's there. It's in place. It's going to be in place for the next 3 years?
Right.
4 years.
About 4 years.
If
If we were going to have a new contract, let's wait and let the new members be there to have their say in what the contract's going to look like.
And I appreciate you being honest, Dave, and saying it's about security. I want security, because who could blame you in that aspect? And the job is it's a public service job, so you're working oftentimes at the whims of the public, and I understand new people come in with new ideas, new people come in with different prejudices, and I'll tell you, when I ran for council the first time, it's because I was angry about something. It was. And I think a lot of people get on council for that reason. But, you gotta respect the people, and you gotta, Councilman Stuchel?
Yeah, we're really in a transition period right now, and I think what we've seen here is a crossroads of, we have a very intelligent citizenry in our community, very intelligent people who pay attention, which is excellent. We also have a number of hardworking business people who have been very successful and want to continue to see that success continue on. And they've seen failed city managers, and they've seen successful ones. So in a sense, they're looking to protect that while, great new ideas, new generations. The transition isn't going to be like that. It's got to be a gradual transition. And David Mackey could very much be that bridge for that transition. And I would hate to see us lose David in 3 years from now, because somebody else's children are old enough now and maybe he's not so tied to the community. But David could be that transition, that bridge to, if we want to have a citizen-run, a mayor-run government. But right now, we're not there. And you're not just going to get there by denying his contract or getting up here and making all sorts of, nice speeches. This is going to happen over bourbon and cigars. This is going to happen over a lot of discussions and a lot of good people getting involved. But David's leadership, servant leadership. He serves. He's definitely not a dictator by any means. I mean, his accomplishments are commendable. And I think we need to really look at this bridge between where we're at today and where the future's gonna take us. And you gotta have a bridge to make that a successful, well-built bridge. And I see that in David Mackey. Thank you.
Councilman Beer.
One more comment, and this kind of directed at Gary's comments. I think it's important that this council votes on this tonight. And then, because I'm gonna make a motion on the first part of it, because this full council for the last 2 years, if it doesn't pass, it is, for the last 2 years have witnessed David's hard work. And if we wait for the new council to come in, minimum or maximum, you could have 4 new members. I have no idea what David's done in the last, where he's taken us from and where we're at now. So I really think that we need to go, if we have a motion in a second, depending on how that goes. But I would definitely be making a motion, if it doesn't pass, to address that first part of that contract, because on this council, we know his performance. Whereas the future council that's gonna be coming in the middle of November might not be up to snuff on it.
Councilman Zola.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, gentlemen, for your comments thus far. I would say lady, but you haven't commented yet. Nevertheless, I appreciate Dave Mackey. He has answered my texts in the middle of a weekend, in the middle of a night. There's a branch, if you drive south on South Hillsdale Road, there's a branch hanging on the charter communications line that's been hanging on there for months. I'm just waiting for that silly thing to finally, for the line to succumb to its weight. I called Dave on that. He's like, that's not a BPU line, that's a charter communications line. He called charter, they've yet to act on it. So maybe some of you who are charter customers might get on the phone and call them and say, listen, if you guys don't do this, we're gonna lose our communications in the city of Hillsdale. But nevertheless, Dave did work on that, and he has answered my calls in the middle of the night and when he's on vacation, and I admire him for that, and I do think he serves our city well. Nevertheless, having a contract extension in the middle of a contract is, I don't know what the right word to describe it. It's suspect. It has an appearance that many of our constituents don't appreciate. The severance, man, I wish I had a severance package at my job for even 6 weeks. I don't. I work at will. My employer employs me at will. If either of us decide to depart ways, then we depart ways, and I have to figure it out. If my employer says your services are no longer required, Robert, I think it's a very unique for a not-for-profit like the city of Hillsdale to offer such a bountiful package. And I voted for when I was first on council in 2021, I believe is when we voted for it. And maybe a little ignorant to the ramifications of that. And I understand, speaking to other city manager friends of mine, why there is this contingency of a severance if a city manager gets fired. And to clarify again, it's not, if there's due cause, if he's embezzled and we fire him because he embezzled money, and I'm not saying you ever would do that, it's just an example. I believe Dave's a man of integrity, want to clarify that. But, that's due cause, and he would not receive a severance for that, right? So, there is that 2 years, and having your salary in the public forum, and so everybody knows all your business. It's pretty intimate details, and I admire a man that can take the scrutiny of that. But upwards of $400,000 or whatever that, to city of Hillsdale when we're assessing the taxpayers of the city of Hillsdale above and beyond their taxable rates. And when taxable rates have gone up considerably, I'm paying $1,200 more a year than I was 3 years ago for my own home. So, which is fine. I think it's part of my duty to contribute to the city's functionings. I actually moved to the city purposefully because I wanted to get on council, because I wanted to help, not because I was mad about anything. I wanted to be involved, and like the mayor said, do my civic duty. Dave does it at our request, but I can't support 24 months. I have a hard time with 12 months based on what I know. And I was sent an email, a video of a debate with former Councilman Bell when we were arguing about 4 or 6 months, many years ago. And so that's very, I can't support that, Dave, and I'm sorry. And then also, I believe in your current contract, there's a cost of living increase, which is based on the rate of inflation. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that's fine. I have no problems with that. But I didn't receive a 7 or 9% salary boost this year. I mean, you are, and I'm glad you are. The cost of living is crazy. But then I think in this is another 2% on top of that, which I admire and respect Councilman Veer and appreciate his sentiment to approving that. But again, back to the austerity thing, we're asking our constituents to contribute $5,000 above and beyond their property tax values when we are repaving their roads, which is a necessary thing, and that's why I vote for it every time, because our infrastructure has been neglected, since the 50s probably. I know Councilman Veer lived on South Hillsdale Road in the 70s and told us that the culverts there that we just repaved last year were flooding 50 years ago, and we finally fixed that, and I'm glad for that. But I would request, that, as a sign of goodwill and good faith, to the constituents you serve, that maybe this year we just say, you know what, I don't need the 24 months. I don't need the 2%. Just as Councilman Morrissey and I dug deep in our pockets to kind of feel the pain of our constituents, maybe Dave, you could do that as well. And not saying you have to, and it's just something I'm thinking out loud here, because I want to see our roads continue to get repaved, and I want to see our citizens continue to be heard. But unfortunately, I can't support this.
Any more discussion? Councilman Palladino.
So the severance package would raise to 2 years in 2025, correct?
That's what's in the
recommendation. What would be the approximate payout for that severance?
About 400,000 or a little more.
Yeah.
If I was fired with cause. Without cause.
If you were fired without cause, right? Yeah, so I would like to hear something about what causes, like.
I do have a quick question about that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we had terminated a BPU director with cause, and we still paid his salary for 2 years afterwards. Was that because it was in his contract, or?
I don't have any idea. It was
Okay.
not involved with
Yeah, I don't know if you were here. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not gonna say anybody's name, and I'm not trying to drag somebody through the mud that's already gotten drugged through the mud enough, but I'm just saying, I do recall that we had to pay his salary for 2 years, even though we terminated him with an extreme amount of cause. Councilman Sharp.
If I remember, he had it written in his contract through the former city manager, Logley. Yeah, it wasn't you, Dave.
No,
this was back when Tim Fox was here.
Obviously.
Yes, and that's why the people rose up and spoke and wanted him removed after 9.5 years, because they'd had enough, and then there was a mess Dave had to come in and clean up.
Yeah,
So-
Dave,
so-
yeah.
Also, the BPU director back then in particular would have been separate from the city manager, so the BPU director's salary and terms and all that aren't constrained by the charter or any statutes that relate to the types of things that we're talking about here. That section I just read indicated, the severance, for example, that you're allowed to provide in a contract for the chief executive officer of or the chief administrative officer of severance pay if they are terminated without cause. Cause is an interesting thing, so it's a legal term of art, and it sort of is like, to courts anyway, that are asked to interpret it, sort of like the old rule for obscenity, we know it when we see it, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of depends on the factual situation that you're presented with at the time, and you'd have to get a legal opinion as to whether or not that would constitute cause. Generally, when we do that, we look at, are there cases that have been litigated up through the appellate court level that would give us some guidance as to whether this particular factual pattern and the reason for the termination would fit within that. So that's where you can wind up with a fight sometimes, is if it's not real clear. There are certain things that certainly are theft, embezzlement, that sort of thing, gross insubordination. If in the case of the city manager, if they did something that was, they were told by the council, we're gonna do X thing, and they did something to subvert that, that would probably pretty clearly be cause. But again, it's dependent on the factual situation in many respects.
Okay, thank you, sorry, Councilman Palladino.
Okay, so, yeah, my main concern with that, just doing very brief reading, is that it essentially does not apply to our disagreement with administrative actions. Does the city manager have the authority to sue the Pongrassics without the council's consent?
So the city manager has the ability to ask the attorney's office to file an action to enforce a right of the city, yes. So in that case, that's what that lawsuit was for. We filed an action at the request of the city manager to enforce the city's rights with respect to the alleyway, the public's rights with respect to the alleyway. So yeah, in that circumstance, yes, the city manager could do that. If the council didn't like that, the council could vote to instruct the city attorney's office to, handle either the dismissal of the suit or some sort of other resolution if they wanted to.
Okay, so we can block and well, that's a political action, a lawsuit, we can override that.
Well, so the city attorney's office, we represent the city, right? And so if the city council, which is the legislative authority of the city, directed our office to take a particular action upon a vote of the entire council, sure. Or whoever happened to be there at that particular meeting, assuming you had a quorum, right? Yeah, then we would do whatever we're asked to do. That's our job. We provide that legal service to the city, and we follow whatever guidance we're given by those folks who provide that to us.
Okay, but you don't have to seek prior approval.
Generally, I couldn't sue somebody if a committee of the council came to us and said, we wanted you to do that.
So it says council members can't initiate a lawsuit as a committee, but a staff member can.
Only the city manager has the authority to direct us to do something.
Okay.
Because he is the chief administrative officer of the city.
Okay, but a lawsuit is not an administrative action, is the point. A lawsuit isn't necessarily political, it's a judicial action. So the point I'm trying to get at here is that we don't have full oversight. We can correct every action as it comes along, but if there were a pattern of actions that we disagreed with, you don't want to have to correct those piecemeal. You want to be able to have control over the person in that office. Okay, so that's why we need political control.
Just to address that,
context of the question that you asked me in terms of authority.
Sure.
There is nothing that stopped the city council from providing meeting to say, here are procedures that we want to adopt for the determination as to whether or not we would file an action against a citizen or anybody else, right? So you could do that in advance as opposed to waiting until after something happened and say, oh, wait a minute, we didn't want that to happen, right?
Okay.
It's just that right now there isn't anything that says something like that. So our job is to do what we're asked by those with authority to ask us to do it. So that's what we do.
Okay. Yeah, it's those sorts of provisions. I know that the rest of the council is grumbling because they don't mind this, but I do. I'd also like to read the city manager appointments section. The council shall, within 90 days after any vacancy exists in the position of city manager, appoint a city manager for a period of not less than 1 year, nor more than 5 years, and shall fix his compensation. So the common sense reading of this is that city manager contracts extend from 1 to 5 years. The legal reading of this is that this is only if the position isn't currently filled. If it is currently filled, then you can have what number of years for the contract?
There isn't a set number of years because your charter doesn't address that, nor does that language I read from the Home Rule City Act says you can have the contract length or the terms, well actually it addresses the length, right? It says you can have a term that is beyond the date of the term of those in office on the council at the time, as long as there's not a charter provision that prohibits it.
Okay.
So there isn't something, it doesn't expressly say that if you extend the contract for somebody that's already there, that there's a set amount of time for which you could extend it. And, there was a new contract that was given after the initial contract to Mr. Mackey, and that's what set up this longer period of time. And I think, I didn't give that original opinion, but I think at that time, that was the opinion that came from the city
Okay,
council.
so we have no limit to the appointment length of according to this reading of it. So you could appoint a city manager for 1 year, take that vote, 2 seconds later, take another vote, give them a 20-year contract, 5 years severance, that no statutory limitations.
Yeah, I don't know that I would opine on that without looking to see if there's anything that addresses that in the law. But I think that certainly at the time that you entered into another contract for another period with an existing city manager, that you could theoretically, because it doesn't say you're prohibited from exceeding that for someone that's existing in the post, that you can have a term that was in excess of 7 years. Okay. In which case you could continue to extend it to maintain that same term, presumably, or something different.
So 7 years is the limit then?
No.
Okay.
There is no limit.
Right. Okay.
I'm making the distinction between the two things that you talked about, which is if I did the initial agreement and said it was for a term of a year, the next meeting or the next day turned around and extended it, I think that might be a closer call. I wouldn't want to give you an opinion on whether or not that was okay unless I went and did some research on that.
Okay. I don't know if the rest of you can hear this. They absolutely hate this, grumbling constantly. No deliberation, no team building. Okay, yeah, this sets a really dangerous principle, I think. So in 2030, none of us will be up here, I believe. That then council elected in 2030 still will not have the ability to change the city manager without paying a $400,000 plus severance, including all of the raises that he'll have over the next years. Could be $450,000 by then. That means that no responsible council would fire him except for, actually stealing money from the city, basically, because it would be such a burden on the city budget. That would be currently, a sixth of the city budget to fire the city manager, a fifth. What are we at? 2.2 million in tax revenue this year. Okay, so this is not a good precedent. I know. What I feel from this whole situation is that Dave doesn't trust us or the next elected council to keep him here. And I guess I'm confused why that's the case. Do any of you have bad interactions with Dave? You're all saying he's responsive. I don't get why this is the case. I think in principle, each city manager contract should extend for 2 years so that each new council has the authority to reapprove it or not. I don't even agree with the 1 year severance. I think that $200,000 ties the hands of the council. You could make an argument that in principle it could be 4 years, because then each council person would at least have one opportunity to vote on the city manager. Okay, that could make sense. I think we're heading into, setting a dangerous precedent here of contracts that extend beyond the length of not only this council. Everyone will be gone. Gary and I are not eligible after 2030. We will be gone. There will be no one here who approved this contract, and it will be set in stone at a cost of $450,000 to remove. One other point, I also don't support the cost of living adjustment or the pay raise, not because of Dave's merit, but because taxation is at 21 mils, which is the statutory maximum, and we're charging $5,000 special assessments for road repair. So, as an act of servant leadership, as an act of public service, I think it should be frozen until we reach a point where we can afford these things.
Any more discussion? I've got a motion on the floor from Councilman Morrissey, second by Councilman Sharp. We are voting on the amendment to Dave's, we're not voting on the annual, we're voting on the amendment to his current contract to extend it to 8 years, including the severance, so on and so forth. You guys know what we're voting on. We'll do a roll call, City Clerk.
Yes, Councilperson Sharp? Yes. Soha? Stuchel? Beer? No. Wolfram? Mayor Stockford?
No.
Councilperson Morrissey?
Yes.
Palladino? And Pratt? That's 2-7. Fails.
Councilman Beer?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve a 2% salary increase for Mackey starting November 1st, 2024.
I'll second that.
Got a motion on the floor from Councilman, and this is on top of the COLA, or this is in?
I take it you mean the merit pay increases provided for in Mr. Mackey's current contract?
That is correct.
Is this appropriate at this time to be voting on this? Is this when we would normally be voting on this?
You have a motion. If you've entertained the motion and you have a second, then you could vote on it.
Okay. Motion on the floor. Wait, any discussion regarding this? Councilman Soha?
Yeah, just, excuse me, I ran out of water. Just to clarify, there's a cost of living allowance, and then the 2% is on top of that, correct? But the cost of living allowance is already in the contract.
It's in his contract, he gets that.
Right, and we are amending it simply.
So this isn't an amendment. This is in his existing contract, as it was amended. There's an automatic cost of living increase, and there is also a discretionary annual 2% merit increase. Right, so that's why I asked for the clarification to make sure that's what Mr. Beer is talking about.
Councilman Beer?
And I believe the COLA is 3.5?
I don't know what it is this year.
3.2.
3.2. What was it last year? Councilman Palladino?
10.2 last year, is that correct?
Cost of living was 8.7 last year.
Oh, so 10.7 total. Yeah, same reason, no, previous question, do any city employees have severance pay? No? I know.
Other city employees are straight employees and they do not have severance. I am a contract employee and can be terminated at will, so I have a severance contract.
Okay, yeah, 3.2 is sufficient. Most other Americans probably are, in the same boat.
What would the 2% be? How much would that be, the 2%? I haven't got my.
I don't know exactly what it would be.
Seriously, these idiots.
It'd be about $4,000, give or take, a year. If $200,000 is the baseline of what Mr. Mackey earns at this point.
Councilman Beard.
Now, because the BPU pays a portion, as does the city, correct? Okay, and the city pays 45? BPU pays 55?
The city pays 40% of my wages and the BPU pays 60.
Okay.
Any more discussion?
That would be $800 a year then to the city's budget. Approximately.
Councilman Palladino.
I will say though, since this came up, this distinction again between general fund and BPU, yes, it does save the city money. You're paying it as ratepayers though through the BPU.
Councilman Beard.
Which the BPU's rates that charge our customers in Hillsdale, BPU rates are much lower than consumers. And they don't do prime time rate increases if you turn your AC on in the middle of a hot afternoon.
Any more discussion? I got a motion on the floor from Councilman Veer to do the 2% merit-based bonus. Did I have a second? Got a second from Councilman Sharp. Can I have a roll call, City Clerk?
Councilmember Soha? Stuchel? Veer?
Yes.
Wolfram? Mayor Stockford?
No.
Councilperson Morrissey? Palladino? Pratt? Sharp? That's 5-4 approved.
Okay. Congratulations. You did earn it, Dave.
Bullshit.
All right, let's move on then to new business item letter D, airport land farm lease. Dave.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a renewal period, or we did an RFP for leasing the airport land for farming purposes. Mr. Fix has been, I think, was the only bidder this time, but we've put it out. We put it out about every 3 years. He has been the farmer for the last 6 or so, and this would be a new 3-year lease. The rates are good, and he has done well with the airport, so we would recommend that this be approved.
Any discussion regarding this?
Move to adopt.
Motion on the floor from Councilman Soha, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt. Can I have a roll call on this, City Clerk?
Yes. Councilperson Soha? Excuse me, Stuchel? It's a long night, guys. Veer?
Yes.
Wolfram? Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
Morrissey? Palladino?
Yes.
Pratt? Sharp? And Soha? All approved.
Thank you, Katie. We will move into new business item letter E, which is to set a public hearing for Act 381 Brownfield Plan for Three Meadows North Redevelopment Project located at 300 Hidden Meadows. This is only to set a public hearing, which would be Monday, November 4th at 7 p.m. up here at our next regularly scheduled council meeting, the first Monday of November. Is there any need for discussion on this? Do I have a motion to? Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilwoman Pratt, set a public hearing for November 4th at 7 p.m. All in favor? Any opposed? Roll call.
Alrighty. Councilperson Beer? Yes. Wolfram? Yes. Mayor Stockford?
Yes.
Councilperson Morrissey? Yes. Palladino? Pratt? Yes. Sharp? Yes. Soha? And Stuchel. You got 8-1 approved.
Thank you, Katie. We will move into miscellaneous reports. We've got one proclamation tonight, Family Court Awareness Month. Oh, okay. This is a lot of words. I always read these though. Whereas the mission of Family Court Awareness Month is to raise awareness about the importance of a family court system that prioritizes child safety and acts in the best interest of children. Family Court Awareness Month also aims to improve recognition among court professionals, legislators, and the public that the family court decisions have profound and lasting impacts on the lives of children and families, making it essential that these decisions are informed by the latest research and best practices in child safety. Whereas an estimated 58,000 children in the U.S. are ordered into unsupervised contact with abusive parents each year, resulting in hundreds of child murders during visitations with a dangerous parent. In Michigan, 39 children have been killed by parents since 2008 during divorce or custody disputes. Whereas in August of 2024, 6-year-old Rowan Morey of Caledonia, Michigan was not returned to his mother after his father's parenting time. A search led police to discover that Rowan had been shot and killed by his father, who then took his own life. Rowan's mother had previously reported the father's abusive behavior to both family court and child protective services. Whereas in August 2022, 16-month-old Chaos McCarthy was murdered by his father in Genesee County. A Genesee County judge had awarded the father temporary custody just weeks before the boy's death, despite the father's prior felony convictions. Whereas in September 2021, 3-year-old Dylan Thiebaud was fatally shot by his father in a murder-suicide during court-ordered visitation in Kent County. Dylan's mother had made repeated effort to report her ex-husband's abuse and threats to 6 different entities. Whereas in 2015, the Shibhoney children abuse claims were dismissed by the Oakland County Family Court, and the children were sent to juvenile hall for resisting visitation with their father. Controversial reunification therapy was ordered, which mandates reconciliation with alleged abusers. This therapy, which is not evidence-based, has been shown to be detrimental, and despite findings of judicial misconduct in the case, reunification theory is still frequently ordered by family courts. Whereas Kent County, Michigan, following 6 domestic violence-related homicides within 3 months in 2021, recognized the need for a specialized domestic violence court. This court, staffed by individuals knowledgeable about the intricacies of domestic violence, aims to support victims and families, hold offenders accountable, and prevent further homicides. Whereas the mission of Family Court Awareness Month is to promote judicial education and awareness about the necessity of using scientifically validated, evidence-based treatment programs that are proven to be safe and effective. This education should include training on domestic violence, child abuse, childhood trauma, coercive control, and post-separation abuse for judges and all professionals involved in family court cases. Whereas Family Court Awareness Month is dedicated to educating judges and family court professionals on the importance of incorporating evidence-based, peer-reviewed research into their decision-making. This includes the Adverse Childhood Experiences study from Vincent Felitti Kaiser Permanente, CDC Child Custody Evaluator Beliefs about Domestic Abuse Allegations, and child custody outcomes in cases involving parental alienation and abuse allegations. This research reveals a prevalent gender bias against mothers who report abuse in family courts, despite false allegations being rare, and emphasizes the need for impartial decision-making to protect children's well-being. Whereas the Family Court Awareness Month aims to encourage collaboration among legislators, advocates, professionals, and the community to improve family court practices, ensuring they are guided by evidence-based research and prioritize the safety and best interests of children. Now therefore I, Adam L. Stackford, hereby declare the month of November to be Family Court Awareness Month. Okay, we'll move into general public comment. During this time, the podium will be open. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please limit your trips to one of the podium. During this time, you may speak on whatever your heart so desires. Podium is now open.
Good evening again, folks. I'm not quite sure why I stayed this long, except out of a misplaced sense of duty that if you've got to sit up this late, I might as well sit up with you. Thank you all very much for your decisions this evening. I think you did what was best for the good governance of the city and for allowing proper powers to future councils and future voters, and also good fiscal prudence on the part of the council. I want to thank everyone who participated, and have a good night.
Thank you, George. Any more public comment? This is general public comment.
Well, I'm back on my soapbox about the assessments. I had the opportunity this time, though. I went to Barron County to visit a relative, and I got to see the chip seal road that is on their road, brand new road. So I walked up and down to take a look at it, so I have an idea. I really appreciate the lady who came up here last week and told us about the asphalt and chip seal. When I wanted to buy a new truck, we looked at the one with all the bells and whistles. And then I looked at my budget and realized I couldn't have the bells and whistles. So I went to what my budget could afford. So I did a nice standard truck. So what I want you guys to understand is that Hillsdale can't afford all these asphalt roads. We can't afford the chip seal roads, which I'm doing tons of research on it. They last 5 to 10 years, depending on which part of the road is. And then the maintenance on it is actually not really bad. I'm asking you guys, have you guys really done some research on chip seal versus asphalt? Have you looked it up? There are tons of debates on this. Hillsdale can afford chip seal roads. We have some that, yes, that do need asphalt. Some of the main roads definitely have to have asphalt. Did West Street and the ones up by up the Hill Bacon, did they need asphalt? No. They could have done chip seal. They're actually having problems right now because of all the sand that's up there. So, if you're going to buy a new item, you buy what you can afford. Hillsdale can't afford this. We can't afford to have Sharp Street and all the other streets that we drive down, that the roads are so bad that I literally go 4 blocks out of my way. This doesn't even affect me. I live on Howell. I will never need my road to be done. But again, I run across a lot of people who are complaining. Please consider just doing more chip seal, get out of the asphalt, do those for the main roads, and get the roads finished. It's going to be 1/3 of the cost. The 1/3 of the cost, and we don't have to have special assessments. You're asking people to pay actually, you're not even asking them. You're telling them. You're telling Hillsdale citizens, you have to pay $5,000. You keep saying ask, please stop using that word. You are demanding, requesting, telling them you will pay it or else.
Thank you. I'm tired. Public comment. Podium's still open, you guys. General public comment.
A few months ago, I was put on one of your boards, elected to one of your boards, and had a chance to say thank you to all of you for that, and on behalf of one of my other colleagues who's also here to say that. At the same meeting, there was someone who treated this council quite abusively, and I know a number of you were quite upset about that. I've had a lot of experience in government. The mayor knows some of that, and at some very high levels. And I just thought it might be useful once to say, after a meeting like this, which was serious, you showed tremendous command of your portfolios, was done respectfully towards the public and also towards one another, how much you're a credit to the process, the political process in this country, and not every place that we know, as we know, can say that, but this evening you were. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joshua. Any more public comment? General public comment.
Hi everybody, Matt Niffen from Ward 3. I want to thank you for your time, discussion, and your votes this evening. A couple of quick things. I don't know if I'll make it back next week for the Three Meadows discussion, but I am concerned about the city expanding its footprint and not collecting, extending liabilities and not bringing in tax revenue. I think the city residents will be paying for their leaf collection, their plowing, their police and fire, and the city won't be getting tax revenue for up to 25 years. So I think we should consider that, or consider not voting a yes on that. I was also concerned and thank Jack McLean, who I guess isn't here tonight, for pointing out that we weren't collecting the proper amount of taxes on the rough draft building and how that was going on for 2 years. I found that very concerning. And then also, last time I got up here, I brought up the gentleman who's now has half a driveway. And I know there's ordinances and rules about that, but that shouldn't be the case. Thanks.
Thank you, Matt. Any more public comment? General public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the podium, move into the city manager's report. David.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. First, I want to correct the statement I just heard about rough draft not paying their taxes. What Jack was concerned with is there were two entities. They had changed the name and shifted the ownership into a new entity. At all times, they have paid their appropriate amount of taxes, whether it was the one entity or the other. In that statement I've heard many times, I just want to correct as well, and not all, that SADs are all $5,000. They're not all $5,000. It depends on the entire condition of the road. We've had some that were $3,500 because they didn't need the curb and gutter. If you have a full-fledged complete replacement or rebuild, it's probably going to be $5,000. But the ones that have good curb and gutter, then we're just talking about the road surface. And again, just a reminder that while we're there, we're looking at the water and sewer lines to make sure they're good, and they're being replaced not on the SAD component, on the BPU side. And I would ask council if you would to forward the emails you received on Lifeways and the amendment to my contract to the city clerk, so that she can make them part of the public record, so that we have for and against, representation, because they can be FOIA, so it just makes sense for you to send them over.
Will she attach them to this?
Yes, I would say so.
What if we've already deleted them?
Then they're in your junk.
Well, hopefully I know some of them were sent to multiple people in the same chain. And I believe if they were sent to you individually, there may be some who were sent to everyone individually. So we probably have
I got some
the gist.
that were just individual.
But
Lisa.
in the future, we don't have to keep everything that gets sent to us, right?
Yes, you do.
If it's regarding city business,
Yeah.
you're gonna wanna keep it, cause it's FOIA-able, yeah.
Okay.
On the special assessment, how much, because everybody usually gets a new driveway apron, right? So they're
Correct.
paying $5,000. What's that cost for that apron?
I'd have to ask Jason. Jason,
Just-
can you
just
come
to-
up and answer that?
So not everyone gets new apron, they get what they had prior, so if they had concrete, replaced with concrete, if they had asphalt, replaced with asphalt, and so on and so forth. A typical drive approach is about $3,200 to $5,400, depending on size.
Any questions for Dave?
So Rough Draft didn't have to pay the amount of taxes without the Oprah during the years that the company that owned Rough Draft did not obtain the Oprah certificate. Okay, so Rough Draft Creative Constructs owned the building in 2019, transferred it to 42 Hillsdale LLC in 2020. The building, the property transfer. We didn't transfer the Oprah certificate until a couple meetings ago, correct?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
They don't have to pay the full amount since they didn't have the Oprah, the unabated tax amount.
I think they paid the full amount, but I will actually get back to you on your question, because I'll ask the city assessor on that, because she would be handling that.
Okay, so Jack FOIA'd it and sent it to me, and I'm pretty sure you signed it, and it showed $1,000, $30, $1,000, $60, $1,000, $90 over that 4-year period when they didn't have the Oprah certificate. It's just, again, you know, bad example maybe, but we revoked the cork oil certificate because he didn't fill out the paperwork properly in part. So we need to make sure that we're, you know, following the same procedures.
Absolutely.
Any more questions for Dave? Okay, council comment. Anybody have anything? It was a long meeting. Good deliberation. Motion on the floor from Councilman Sharp, seconded by Councilman Soha to adjourn. All in favor? Any opposed? The ayes have it. This meeting's adjourned.
I'll stay with this as long as the screen stays up.
The way Trump is talking about cutting Social Security is crazy. Cutting Social Security is like giving the middle finger to